It's finally time for part one of my Buffalo Bills mock offseason today on Locked On Bills.
You are Locked On Bills, your daily Buffalo Bills podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Bills Mafia? It's Joe Marino, author of Go Bills and Buffalo's Run, also the co-host of the Locked On NFL Scouting podcast, and I am your host of Locked On Bills. Want to thank you for making Locked On Bills your first listen every day, and a big welcome and shout out to our everydayers. You know who you are. Those of you who never miss a single episode, I appreciate y'all being here very, very much. I'd also like to invite you to subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Well, folks, welcome in. I've been excited to do this for a while now. Brandon Beane and his rash of moves on Wednesday certainly delayed this a little bit, but it's time for my 2024 Buffalo Bills mock off season. It will be two parts, but I'm releasing both parts at the same time. So this is part one, and as soon as you're done with this one, part two will be available for you. It's just too much content to fit into one of our episodes. And so on this part, we're going to create the cap space. We are going to sign back some players. We're going to sign new players in free agency. Then in the next part, we're going to do the 7-round mock draft and have our 53-man roster projection. So a few things to note before we get into this. First of all, this is not predictive. This is not predictive at all. This is what I would do. This is what I would do if I were Brandon Beane, calling the shots, shaping this roster for 2024. I also fully understand the advantage that I have. I am pretty much doing this with no competition from 31 other teams. If I want a player, I sign the player for the amount that PFF projects that they will sign for. If I want to draft a player, well, I have the great opportunity of doing the draft. And again, not really having any competition from other GMs, right? It's just me calling the shots. Now, I use the mock draft simulator to give myself a realistic opportunity, but I certainly understand the advantage that I have, given there's not 31 actual GMs competing against me for players. The real objective here, outside of this just being fun, right? I love team building. I love roster construction. I love all this stuff. It's fun. But the objective that I really want to have is showing you what's possible or what's close to being possible, to give you an idea of what Brandon Beane can do. Will he do the exact same things? No. Is he going to have a different vision? Of course. But conceptually, what these resources should provide him the opportunity to do. That's what I want you to be able to see here on this mock off season. So let's get into it. And I do want to start with this. Some people in our Locked On Bills subtext community reached out to me and said, hey, Joe, before you dive into the mock off season for 2024, maybe you can look back a little bit at 2023, talk about what you did and see how some of that compared to Brandon Beane. So I do want to start with that. And oh, by the way, join the Locked On Bills subtext community. We've had a fun week with all the news. Part of what you get with the Locked On Bills subtext community is text messaging with me, and I send out text messages with all my first reaction to all the Bills news. And so I sent out dozens this week with everything that happened, and next week's going to be really busy as well with all the free agency. So check that out. If you want to join the Locked On Bills subtext community, there's a link in today's show notes that you can click on and join. And you also get one-on-one texting with me. So if you have questions, you can send them in at any time. And you get access to our Discord channel, which is a community of like 600 Bills fans. We're talking Bills, Sabres, life, all kinds of stuff in there. It's very, very fun to be part of that. And as the Bills sign players, I'm going to be doing film breakdowns in our Discord channel, showing different clips and showing different things that I think about the players the Bills add. So a great time to join the Locked On Bills subtext community. Again, a link in today's show notes to join. All right, let's talk about this 2023 mock off season. What I'll do is I'll just give you my 53-man roster projection, and you can kind of see me work through that and compare it to what Brandon Beane actually did. I think I have some wins. I think I have some L's along the way. At quarterback, I had Josh Allen and Kyle Allen. At running back, I had James Cook. I had the Bills signing Jamal Williams, free agent running back, who wound up going to the New Orleans Saints. Physical downhill runner, pass protection. I had Nyheim Hines, and Reggie Gilliam. So I did this in last March. I had no idea what was going to happen with Nyheim Hines. At receiver, I had Stefon Diggs, Gabe Davis. We signed in free agency Robert Woods. I had Khalil Shakir, Jake Kumaro, and then I drafted Marvin Mims, the young player out of Oklahoma that's now a Denver Bronco. Be fun to have him right about now, right? A nice young wide receiver that has big playability down the field, yards after catch. And so that would have been a nice player to have. At tight end, I had Dawson Knox, Quentin Morris, and Chris Manhertz. I did not have the big vision for 12 personnel. Chris Manhertz was brought in as a blocking specialist at tight end. The offensive line was Dion Dawkins, Ryan Bates, Mitch Morse, Nate Davis. I signed Nate Davis, a free agent who went to the Bears, and that actually hasn't looked very good. So maybe that wouldn't have been a good idea. Spencer Brown, Tommy Doyle. I had Andre Dillard signed as a depth tackle who went to the Titans, and he absolutely stunk. So that was probably a bad idea. And then I drafted 2 offensive linemen, Joe Tippmann and Warren McClendon. Joe Tippmann looks like he's going to be a nice answer for the Jets on their offensive line as a center. And then Warren McClendon, kind of a developmental tackle. I think those would have been good young additions to the offensive line. On the edge, I had Von Miller, Greg Rousseau. Justin Houston was my free agent acquisition here. Obviously, Brandon Beane did a much better job than I did. Leonard Floyd was the better choice than Justin Houston. I had AJ Epinesa, Boogie Basham, and Thomas Incoom was a player I drafted in the middle rounds. Defensive tackle was Ed Oliver, Daquan Jones, Tim Settle. I signed Colin Saunders, who's a nice player for the Saints, and I drafted Keanu Benton. And the draft, I had traded out of the first round, and I had a couple of early second-round picks, one of them being Keanu Benton, who looks like an absolute stud for the Pittsburgh Steelers and as an interior defensive lineman. I think that would have been a win for me. At linebacker, we brought back Tremaine Edmonds, of course, Matt Milano, Terrell Bernard, Dalen Spector. I drafted Jeremy Banks as a reserve linebacker. The corners were Trey White, Kyer Elam, Taron Johnson, Christian Benford, Saron Neal, Dane Jackson. So pretty much exactly what Brandon Beane had. At safety, I let Jordan Poyer go in free agency. I signed Taylor Rapp. I also signed Jabril Peppers, and that would have been a heck of a signing because that dude's a stud. And I wish the Bills had him. I also had Micah Hyde. I drafted Brandon Hill, a safety out of Pittsburgh. The specialists were the same. So Ferguson, Bass, and Martin. So I think where I had some wins, Marvin Mims would have been a great addition to this receiver core. I think Keanu Benton would have been a nice defensive tackle for this team to have. I would say that I did a nice job with Joe Tippmann as an interior offensive lineman. That would have been an answer here, but I don't have Dalton Kincaid. I didn't have Leonard Floyd. I think those were definitely moves that Brandon Beane had on me. Jabril Peppers would have been a heck of an addition too. I'll say that. So I had some good stuff. You know, Brandon Beane had some good stuff. He had some L's. I had some L's. That's just how this goes. All right, 2023. Let's put it behind us. Let's move forward. In just a moment here, we're going to create the cap. We're going to re-sign some players, and we're going to add some outside free agents. So buckle up and stick with me. Did you know that even if you have a 401k for retirement, you can also have an IRA? Robinhood has the only IRA that gives you a 3% boost on every dollar you contribute when you subscribe to Robinhood Gold. But get this, now through April 30th, Robinhood is even boosting every single dollar you transfer in from other retirement accounts with a 3% match. That's right, no cap on the 3% match. Robinhood Gold gets you the most for your retirement thanks to their IRA with a 3% match. This offer is good through April 30th. Get started at robinhood.com/boost. Subscription fees apply. And now for some legal info. Claim as of Q1 2024, validated by Radius Global Market Research. Investing involves risk, including loss. Limitations apply to IRAs and 401ks. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold for 1 year from the date of the first 3% match. Must keep Robinhood IRA for 5 years. The 3% matching on transfers is subject to specific terms and conditions. Robinhood IRA available to U.S. customers in good standing. Robinhood Financial LLC member SIPC is a registered broker-dealer. All right, folks, let's do it. Let's create the cap space, re-sign some players, and add some outside free agents. Now, my starting point in the salary cap is where Spot Rack has the Bills right now, and this does include everything that Brandon Beane has done to this point. So, releasing Mitch Morse and Jordan Poyer, Deontay Hardy, Saron Neal, the Rasul Douglas move, Von Miller's cap situation, bringing back David Edwards, signing Mitchell Trubisky, everything as of Friday morning is reflected in that 7.6 over the cap number. So we got to create some cap here to get cap compliant, but also I want to do some stuff. I want to add some players. I want to have some flexibility. So we're going to do some stuff here. So here are my additional cap saving moves. Number one is we're restructuring Josh Allen's contract. That's going to free up $23.1 million in cap space. No brainer. Fully expect this to actually happen. Again, a lot of this isn't necessarily predictive. Some of it is that this is a moment where it's predictive. Josh Allen restructure, that's going to happen. I also have restructuring Dawson Knox, the tight end. That frees up $6 million. I know that Dawson Knox is overpaid. I get it. He is. He's also a good football player that can help this team, that I think is important to them, not just for what he offers as a tight end, but I think he's an important glue piece for this team. Is he overpaid? Yes, I've said that already. But he's still a useful player, and I cannot ignore the opportunity to get $6 million in cap space. I'm not concerned about being connected to Dawson Knox. I'm concerned about what his contract is, and his contract is what his contract is. But I'm going to take the opportunity right now to get the $6 million in cap space. At Oliver, we're restructuring that deal. That's going to free up $3.94 million. I have no concerns about that. At Oliver, very clearly part of the long-term plans for this team. But that's it. I'm not restructuring anyone else. Josh Allen, Dawson Knox, Ed Oliver. I am extending 2 players. You knew I was going to do this. Rasul Douglas, the Bills already did something there that freed up $2.5 million. I am extending Dion Dawkins. I am extending Taron Johnson, both in the final year of their contracts. I did an entire episode on extending Dion Dawkins and Taron Johnson and Rasul Douglas. Go check that out if you're looking for like deep dive analysis on why this makes sense. But I can extend them, and I could take their salary this year and spread it over the duration of the contract to give myself some cap relief now, but also make sure that I have 2 of my most dependable, reliable, consistent players locked up beyond 2024. So Dion Dawkins, I'm giving him a 3-year, $54 million extension. That frees up $6.5 million in cap space right now. Taron Johnson, I'm giving him a 3-year, $36 million contract extension. That frees up $4.5 million right now. So with the moves Brandon Beane already did, plus my 3 restructures and 2 extensions, folks, we have $36.6 million in cap space to work with in free agency. Not to mention, we get another 10.2 coming on June 1st when Trey White's release impacts the Buffalo Bills books. So we got some money to play with, and that makes me excited. And it's not a hard path to get there. Like literally just restructure 3 players, extend 2. There's other things that he can do as well. These are the moves that I'm choosing to make. So with that said, we can start talking about the players that we want to re-sign, and then we'll get into the players that I want to sign from the free agent market. So I do have some players I'm going to bring back, more than I thought. Honestly, more than I thought. And again, I'm already operating with Taylor Rapp, with Mitchell Trubisky, with David Edwards, with Connor McGovern as a center, with Mitch Morse no longer on the team. The first thing we're going to do is a very easy one. We are going to sign Quentin Morris as an exclusive rights free agent. He has no choice but to sign for the Bills. 1 year, $985,000. We are going to do that. I really like Quentin Morris as a tight end 3. I think he's got some untapped potential. Like receiving ability is there, but I love his play demeanor, his temperament, the way he executes, the way he competes as a blocker. I really, really like Q Morris as a tight end 3. So 1 year, $985,000, absolute no-brainer. Now I have a couple of big extensions that I'm handing out. You knew this one was coming. I'm bringing back Daquan Jones. There's no doubt about it. Daquan Jones is going to be a part of this football team. We're signing him to a 2-year, $12 million contract extension. I think you can make a case that Daquan Jones has had his best 2 seasons in his last 2 seasons. He's aging well. He's a one-tech. One-techs typically age well. He plays well with Ed Oliver. I am a big fan. Leadership's there. I grew up as a Bills fan. I want to keep him around. So 2 years, $12 million. That's a $6 million AAV. Welcome back, Daquan Jones. We're also going to bring back another defensive lineman, and it is A.J. Epinesa. Welcome back, A.J. Epinesa. We are going to sign you to a 3-year, $20.25 million contract. And just love the trajectory over the last 2 years. I think he had a slow start with it being the COVID year and then kind of undergoing a body transformation. And then year 2 was kind of finding the middle ground in the body transformation. In the last 2 years, he's played good football. He's made impact plays. And I like where he's headed. And as a draft develop re-sign guy, we are prioritizing him over Leonard Floyd. And I think he gives you run defense. I think he gives you a really nice developing pass rush profile. I don't know that he's ever going to be like a consistent 10-sack guy, but I don't need him to be. I'm a 5 to 7 sack guy. You know, get those hands up in throwing lanes. Don't get out of your rush. Like, I think he can be a nice player. We've seen what he can do over the last 2 years. Just more of that. So 3 years, $20.25 million for AJ Epinesa. Also, keep in mind here, these contract dollars, I'm not making them up. These come courtesy of Pro Football Focus. Brad Spielberger, he's the best contract projector in the business. He's been nailing them already this year. He's already nailed Ezra Cleveland. He's already nailed Kevin Dotson, which were big-ticket guards. He is terrific. He's nailed others as well. So I'm not just pulling these contract numbers out of the air. These are what Brad Spielberger, who I think is the best contract projector in the business, this is what he says they're going to get. So that's a nice variable to keep in mind as I work through this. All right, so we're bringing back Hugh Morris, Daquan Jones, AJ Epinesa. We're also going to bring back a couple more players on defense. Dane Jackson, want to bring him back for depth. Once Trey White was released, I felt a little bit of urgency here to bring back Dane Jackson. This wasn't originally part of my plan. So what's kind of fun here is I'll talk through some of the things that happened that I didn't expect to happen based on the moves that Brandon Beane made, which created more cap space than I anticipated. One of them is AJ Epinesa. I originally did not have him coming back. That changed when the Von Miller stuff happened. Dane Jackson, that changed when Trey White happened. He's going to be our 4th corner. But special teams and just having more depth. The Bills have had to use their cornerback depth so much over the last 3 years. I want to have Dane Jackson around. Just makes too much sense. He's familiar with the special teams background, and he can play corner. We're also bringing back Cam Lewis. 1 year, $2 million. Dane Jackson, 1 year, $3 million. Cam Lewis back, 1 year, $2 million. He's going to have a chance to compete at safety. We know he's been trained to play all the positions in the secondary. I think he's too valuable of a depth piece and a special teamer to not bring back for a 1 year, $2 million deal. The last player that I'm going to re-sign is Ty Johnson, the running back. We're giving him a minimum contract, 1 year, $1.25 million. I think he's the perfect RB3. He's got some speed. He's got some power. He can catch it. Very good special teams player. He's been around your team for a year now. Ty Johnson as our RB3 makes perfect sense. So we are re-signing Quentin Morris, Daquan Jones, AJ Epinesa, Dane Jackson, Cam Lewis, and Ty Johnson, which means Tyrell Dotson walks, Gabe Davis walks, Leonard Floyd walks. But I was still able to bring back a little bit more than I thought. I like that I was able to get some pieces back, particularly on the defensive line and the secondary, where, like, just look at what just happened. You just said goodbye to Poyer. Yeah, Hyde's not going to be back. Trey White's gone. Saron Neal. Let's get some stability year over year, right? And we, of course, we have that with Benford and Douglas and Taron Johnson, but a little bit more would be helpful. Same thing with the defensive line, where 8 of the 12 players that you rostered last year are expiring contracts. Let's bring some of that back. And so we do that with Daquan Jones and AJ Epinesa. Now, rest assured, and it's coming up here in just a moment, we got more coming. We got a lot more coming at those positions. But as a starting point, those are the players that I'm going to re-sign. All right, the really fun part comes next. I'm going to tell you the free agents that I'm adding to the Buffalo Bills, so be sure to stick with me. You shouldn't have to worry when you're buying tickets to your next big event. Well, you don't have to, because Game Time is here, and it's the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. They've got killer deals on last-minute tickets, all-in prices, views from your seat, and a best price guarantee. I mean, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. The app is awesome, easy to navigate. They give you flash deals. And I love this. When you buy a ticket, they send it straight to your phone. You don't have to dig through emails to find it. It goes straight to your phone. So snag the tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON. That's LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Lowest tickets, last-minute prices, guaranteed. All right, folks, let's sign some free agents. And we got a few bucks. Right? So we are going to add. And you know my focus here. I've said I think the biggest priority with free agent spending should be on the defensive line. And so we got some defensive linemen, we got some safeties, we got some O-line depth, we have some receivers, running back, linemen. We got some stuff to get to here. But I think I've already kind of showed that with the re-signings. I brought back Daquan Jones and AJ Epinesa. Those were not small players to bring back. So that happened, and we're going to add more to the defensive line. In free agency, I'm signing 3 more defensive linemen. Shelby Harris, you are a Buffalo Bill. 1 year, $3 million. Again, all these contracts come courtesy of PFF. Brad Spielberger. 1 year, $3 million. I think he's the perfect rotational backup 3-tech to Ed Oliver. I love the way he plays. He's a veteran. He can defend the run. He plays hard. He's got interior rush ability. You ask him to play 30, 35% of your snaps, and I think you're going to have a lot of production in that capacity. So Shelby Harris, you are a veteran rotational player for the Buffalo Bills at defensive tackle. Greg Gaines, welcome to the Buffalo Bills. You are our backup 1-tech to Daquan Jones. You're coming over on a 1 year, $2 million deal. And we know that it wasn't your best season with Tampa Bay, where they asked you to be Vita Vea. We're not going to ask you to be Vita Vea. We're just going to ask you to back up Daquan Jones. We know what you did with the Rams. Really good player. Really good player for the Rams. And part of that Super Bowl team, I think he makes a lot of sense as a backup 1-tech, has rush ability, can defend the run. I think that really gives us a solid 4-man rotation with Ed Oliver and Daquan Jones. Now we have Shelby Harris and Greg Gaines to back them up. I really like that. I think we got better there. I think that is better than what the Bills had last year in Jordan Phillips and Tim Settle and Poona Ford. I think this is a better situation. On the edge, we have, of course, Greg Rousseau. We have Von Miller. We have AJ Epinesa. We also now have Carl Lawson. We're bringing him over 1 year, $3.5 million. Still not, he's 29 years old. I think he's a better player than he got a chance to showcase himself last year with the Jets, where that defensive end situation just got a little bit crowded. And I think in a rehab year, I think Buffalo is a perfect spot for him, where he can give you run defense, power as a pass rusher. He's got production in his NFL career. And so he comes in to be like our 4th defensive end as part of this group to go with Rousseau, Miller, and Epinesa. So Shelby Harris, Greg Gaines, Carl Lawson added to this defensive line. At safety, well, Taylor Rapp's back as one of our starting safeties. I got to sign Alohi Gilman, free agent safety from the Los Angeles Chargers. He is a player I really enjoyed at Notre Dame, and he had a terrific year this past year with the Chargers, playing with Derwin James. And they played Derwin James a lot as like a low safety, and Alohi Gilman was more their deep safety, their deep post safety. Man, I love that. If he was that player for the Bills, his ball skills were really impressive. I thought he tracked and just had good awareness all season. He tackles extremely well. So for a center fielder type, you're not conceding tackling ability. He picked off Josh Allen, made a heck of a play in that game against the Bills that the Bills played the Chargers. That was like a Saturday game. Yeah, he's a stud. He's a stud. I think you get him for 2 years, $6 million. I think you're going to have a nice tandem with Gilman and Rapp to move this safety room forward. We're also going to sign Ashton Davis, free agent from the New York Jets, was a third-round pick of theirs, super athletic, ball skills. He's physical, big-time special teams pedigree, and so that'll be part of the themes here. I'm adding some special teams upside, but we're going to sign him 1 year, $2 million, and just add him to the mix. Like, see what he has. See if he's a player that, beyond this year, if you want to bring him back and do more with him. But at a minimum, I think you have a nice depth player to be a post safety and a big time special teams impact guy for 1 year, $2 million, young with some upside there. So our safety room's coming together. Offensive line. I do want to make some additions here. One of the points that I've made here since the Bills traded away Ryan Bates, they cut Mitch Morse. And of course, they brought back David Edwards. They're going to play Connor McGovern at center. You got worse on the offensive line. You did. It's just true. So we're gonna correct that. We're gonna sign 2 players. Brian Allen. We're gonna bring him over, free agent. He was recently cut by the Los Angeles Rams. 2022, he signed a 3-year extension with them to be their starting center. He was with Cromer for 3 years in LA, developed into a starting center for them. Was a 4th-round pick, and then some injuries kind of got in the way since he signed the extension, and then Coleman Shelton beat him out this past season. Let's reunite him with Cromer, and at a minimum with Brian Allen, we have a hedge, right? If the Connor McGovern to center thing doesn't really work, you've got an option now in Brian Allen, who has started for Aaron Cromer, and he could be a starter in the NFL. I think this is very much like a David Edwards situation where kind of fell out of favor with LA, injuries late, hits the market, looking for a rehab year, and I think Buffalo's the perfect spot for it. So we bring him in. He competes with Connor McGovern. And worst case scenario, Connor McGovern just goes to left guard if you're more comfortable with Brian Allen at center. You can work the combinations here a little bit. And, of course, you have David Edwards, who I think is more than capable of beating your starting left guard. So this is a nice contingency against the current plan with the interior offensive line. We're all and I want competition for Alec Anderson, too. I mean, I'm excited about Alec Anderson, but I don't know if he can play. The trajectory is good, but he's not a guy that to me makes this team uncompeted with, right? Like I got to have a veteran to compete with him. Same thing with Ryan Vandemark. I'm excited about Ryan Vandemark. Love the tools, love the trajectory. I need a veteran tackle to bring in some competition. And that's going to be Kendall Lamb. 1 year, $1.5 million, has been a phenomenal swing tackle throughout the last several years of his career and has done a really good job for Miami of late. And so a guy that can truly play on the right side or the left side and gives you legit competition for Ryan Vandemark. And he's a pro's pro. I think he'd be a great culture guy. Perfect reserve tackle. And you make the Dolphins offensive line worse. So that's what we have at offensive line. Brian Allen, Kendall Lamb. I'm adding a couple of wide receivers. Noah Brown, you're a Buffalo Bill. 2 years, $7 million. He's a guy that projects to be an X receiver. Size, physicality down the field, has made big catches down the field, right? He has that vertical ability. He blocks. He plays special teams. I think he's exactly the type of big-bodied physical receiver that has vertical ability that you're looking for, that adds that skill set to your wide receiver core, but also does that thing where it helps you improve things for your underneath players in a Diggs, in a Kincaid, in a Shakir, because of the vertical ability of a Noah Brown. So I think in some ways, you get a cheaper version of Gabe Davis that's more explosive. Devin Duvernay, you are a Buffalo Bill, and this is a move that is all about kick return and yards after catch. The Bills' best kick return options are no longer around in Nyheim Hines, in Deontay Hardy. Devin Duvernay is a Pro Bowl caliber punt returner and kick returner, and he's a guy that can help you with yards after catch. So as a depth receiver that is a high-end performer as a returner that has really dynamic yards after catch skill, he's a nice X factor to add to the equation. We're signing him to a contract, 2 years, $6 million, so $3 million AAV. At running back, you knew I was going to do this. Ezekiel Elliott, I think he's the perfect RB2. Short yardage ability, pass protection, pass catching, veteran, perfect complement to James Cook. He's coming over 1 year, $2.5 million. And we're also going to sign a linebacker here, Delshon Phillips, coming over from the Ravens. He's a player that once upon a time made the Bills roster as I'm pretty sure, a UDFA. And then he got hurt and then just never was able to keep him around. He goes to the Jets. I think he went to maybe one other team in the Ravens. And he's developed into a very, very good special teams player. So this is kind of like your Tyler Medikevich replacement. But also he's a guy that has more upside to play from scrimmage if you need to. Now, he's below Dorian Williams and Balin Spector on the depth chart. So this is for special teams. But I feel a lot better about Delshon Phillips having to play compared to like a Tyler Medikevich. So he's on the team for 1 year, $1.5 million. So those are my free agent additions. And so you're probably thinking, well, how does this affect the salary cap? Well, we're in good shape. The way that this is going to work, including earmarking money for the draft class and being mindful of the Trey White cap savings that are coming of $10.2 million. After all of this, we're looking at about $5 million in cap space to operate with during the season. And that's not even getting like overly funny with void years and that type of stuff. Like, I'm talking very clean books here and how I'm charging money against the cap. And so there you have it. Created the cap space. We re-signed some players. We signed a bunch of outside free agents. And that sets the stage for the 2024 NFL draft. So in part 2 of this mock off season, we're going to give you the 7-round mock draft. And then, of course, what the 53-man roster looks like after it's all said and done. So that'll be available for you right now. So you can go right to it or you could save it for later. But 2 parts to this series. Part 2 available now on YouTube and in your podcast feeds. Let me know what you think, folks. Let me know what you think. If you're on YouTube, leave a comment and say, hey, what don't you like? What do you like? You know, it's kind of fun to debate this. This is just my vision. You can make your own mock off season and compare it to mine. So it's really fun. And part 2 is coming up here in just a second. So don't miss it. Make sure that you're subscribed. Would love it if you took a second to rate, review, and share this podcast. We'll talk to you again real soon.